You look young for your age.
People aren't always as they seem, Mrs. Michaels.
You do a lot of babysitting?
Sometimes. Most people are liars. I want more from you. Important thing.
A woman takes a job as a babysitter for a troubled child with severe allergies and communication issues. However, the strong bond she forms with the boy could lead to serious consequences. Millicent lies in the back seat of the bus, watching a mother nurse her baby. Moments later, she arrives at her destination and enters a house where she is interviewed by a woman named Rebecca. Rebecca asks her about her education, age, and babysitting experience while her child, Johnny, sits at the end of the table, busily drawing. Millicent explains that she is a college student taking a break to work on her thesis about pediatric allergies. She adds that she has no family or boyfriend. Johnny, Rebecca's child, is sickly, mute, and suffers from multiple allergies. When Johnny grabs Millicent's arm, Rebecca remarks that her son likes her. Rebecca then informs Millicent about Johnny's strict schedule, prescriptions, restrictive diet, and allergies, which include an allergy to nickel and even artificial fabrics. She also expects Millicent to do light household chores since she will be focusing on her career as an author. Rebecca writes books about family, love, and relationships, which she thinks are too complex for Millicent to understand. Rebecca emphasizes that Millicent must follow all her instructions regarding Johnny, including never letting him leave the house. During their conversation, Millicent is distracted by a shirtless man watering the plants outside. Later, the man, Rebecca's husband Jacob, enters the house. Millicent introduces herself, visibly attracted to the married man. He offers her some chocolate wrapped in aluminum, just as Rebecca joins them. The babysitter watches the couple curiously as they playfully flirt in front of her. Later, Millicent rides the bus home. She takes a bite of an apple, but accidentally drops it when the bus suddenly stops. She chases the apple to the middle of the bus, picks it up, and holds onto the bar as the vehicle starts moving again. Suddenly, a man walks up behind her, peering over her shoulder, making Millicent uncomfortable. She begins to hallucinate that the man is a goat-headed devil trying to tempt her. Panicked, she makes a mad dash off the bus as soon as it stops. On the sidewalk, she tries to calm herself and ingests a drop of lysergic acid. Later, she sits in Dr. Welsh's office for her scheduled session. Millicent talks about her dream of becoming a better mother compared to the ones she's seen in the park, whom she believes neglect their children. She recalls encountering a girl in the park who seemed lost. When she took the girl back to her mother, the woman indifferently explained her daughter wasn't lost and continued her conversation with the other moms. Annoyed, Millicent ran off with the girl, prompting the mother to chase her down and slap her for attempting to take her daughter. In the present, she opens up to Dr. Welsh about her violent tendencies, but the psychiatrist dismisses her concerns, insisting that women aren't violent. The doctor suggests lowering her medication dose, but Millicent rejects the idea and denies ever experiencing hallucinations. The doctor then points out her other issue regarding not finding the right foster home, and Millicent says the mothers are fantastic, yet leaves a worrying statement about how all the fathers are always the same. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Jacob discuss their new nanny. Since the man deems her innocent, Rebecca believes the nanny is chaste when she recalls her flustered reaction when asked if she has a boyfriend. Eventually, their conversation leads to them making out in their living room. As they make love, Rebecca asks her husband to choke her, which Jacob isn't comfortable with, but does so at her insistence. Suddenly, they're interrupted by Johnny's screams through the baby monitor. So Rebecca runs to her son's room and administers an epinephrine shot. When the boy inadvertently hits her, Rebecca asks Jacob for help, but the man looks on helplessly at his son's thrashing. Later, they find the aluminum chocolate wrapper in Johnny's hand, so Rebecca accuses her husband of not keeping the snack out of reach. He snaps and tells his wife to accept that Johnny has no allergies but is very sick and they need to send him to a proper facility to get help. However, Rebecca rejects the idea of abandoning their son. The next day, Millicent wakes up and takes a drop of her medication before having breakfast with her foster father, Roger. The much older man displays an unhealthy obsessive behavior toward her and expresses how he wishes they could spend more time together. Later, while Millicent plays with Johnny in the yard, Jacob walks up to them. He asks the woman to take his son around the yard since he doesn't go outside often. After a while, the nanny finds Johnny squatting in the garden and sees him pull out a dead rabbit from the ground. The woman starts butchering and skinning the carcass with her pocket knife, and the boy watches with fascination in his eyes. She hands Johnny the rabbit's foot as a lucky keepsake, then asks if he's buried any more animals in the yard. That night, while washing up, Millicent finds undergarments and a dress in the bathroom. She mischievously puts on the undergarment, then steals Jacob's photo and Rebecca's dress. At home, after taking her medication, Millicent looks at a stolen photograph and begins to fantasize. She imagines an intimate moment with a married man with disturbing visions of blood. Snapping back to reality, she realizes it's her time of the month. The next day, she dyes a stolen dress blue. Mocking Rebecca and mimicking her mother's voice, she heads to work, where she and Johnny have fun drawing and painting on each other's clothes. Later, Jacob receives a call from Rebecca, informing him she can't make it home for Johnny's birthday. Unbeknownst to them, Millicent overhears their conversation. The birthday party ends badly when Johnny gets upset at the sight of his birthday candles. Millicent comforts him with a rabbit's foot keychain, claiming it brings good luck. Touched, Johnny hugs her as she sings him to sleep. Meanwhile, Jacob talks to Rebecca on the phone, blaming her absence for Johnny's outburst. Trying to console him, Rebecca speaks intimately to her husband. Frustratingly, their call gets cut short. Later, a disheartened Jacob, under the influence, approaches Millicent, making her uncomfortable. Suddenly, Johnny comes out of his room, having wet himself, and Millicent tends to him. Before leaving, she's left confused by the evening's events. That night, Rebecca returns home and goes to her sleeping son's room, expressing her fears. Johnny unexpectedly wakes up and hits her, shocking Rebecca, who quickly leaves. On another day, Millicent and Johnny are at the playground when a couple nearby starts arguing, triggering a tantrum from Johnny. Millicent immediately notices Johnny's distress and gently instructs him to cover his ears and take deep breaths to calm down. She reassures him that nothing bad will happen while she's with him. Millicent then shares that her purpose on Earth is to study humans, but she isn't allowed to become one of them, which makes Johnny feel understood and less alone. Later, as Millicent combs Johnny's hair with her fingers, Rebecca comments that they haven't been able to give him a haircut because he never stays still. Millicent suggests they try giving him a haircut together, and Rebecca nervously agrees. Rebecca plays with Johnny while Millicent carefully snips his long hair. Rebecca is overjoyed with her son's progress and happily accepts a lock of his hair as a keepsake from Millicent. However, Johnny bites Rebecca's hand when she touches him and storms away. Heartbroken, Rebecca walks off, holding her injured hand and discarding Johnny's hair. Panicked, Millicent tries to calm herself and reaches for her medication, only to realize she's out. The next day, she asks Dr. Welsh if she could ever have a family of her own. She starts crying, prompting the doctor to sit next to her. Millicent hugs him, but then abruptly vomits on his lap, causing him to leave the room to clean up. While he's gone, Millicent stops her act and stealthily steals 2 bottles of medication from the doctor's drawer. She quickly returns to her seat, pretending as though nothing happened before Dr. Welsh returns. The following day, the couple leaves Millicent with Johnny. While they have a dinner date, the nanny immediately laces the child's medication with her lysergic drops, tells Johnny the magical substance has helped her throughout her life, and wants him to experience the same thing. Millicent and Johnny dance around with one another under the influence of Millicent's magical drops. Then, they head outside without the child's usual astronaut suit. Meanwhile, the couple argues about Rebecca's obsession with hurting herself. Dejected, Jacob tells her they should go home when Rebecca suddenly leans her head over the man's groin and services him while he's driving. Concurrently, Millicent and Johnny cross the road. The distracted couple almost hits them, but thankfully, Jacob steps on the brakes in time. Worried, Rebecca runs to her son's side, telling the nanny to get away from Johnny. As she carries the child away in her arms, Johnny calls out "Mommy." Surprised, Rebecca is overjoyed at her son's first words. However, her joy turns to devastation when she realizes Johnny was actually calling out for Millicent. The child runs to the nanny's arms, and Millicent calms him down with her reassuring words. The scene before her frustrates the mother as she snatches Johnny back and leaves. At home, Rebecca hurriedly tries to give Johnny a bath and begs her child to speak to her. Rebecca desperately tells her son that she's his mother, unaware that Johnny still feels the effects of the laced medication. Meanwhile, Jacob comforts Millicent, who's crying as she apologizes for messing everything up. The married man tells her that she's made a remarkable achievement since she's the reason why his son spoke for the first time. Smitten, Millicent sits on the man's lap, who offers little resistance to her advances. The two then proceed to make love in the car. Later that night, Jacob joins his wife in bed and reveals he's having doubts about his role in their son's life. Rebecca sits up and tries to encourage her husband to stay committed for the sake of their only child. Meanwhile, Millicent arrives home to be confronted by her foster father, who reminds her of their agreement and what he had sacrificed for her, pointing to a photo of his wheelchair-bound wife, implying past wrongdoing. To lower his guard, Millicent tells him to sit down and remove his belt. She slowly hugs him, then suddenly chokes him with the belt until he dies. Enraged, she stomps on his lifeless body, calling out his abusive behavior. She cuts some of his hair, wraps up his body, and pushes him into an empty pool where her foster mother's corpse already lies. She returns to the house and opens her journal, detailing how each of her former foster fathers had tormented her and how she had killed them one by one. She keeps a souvenir from each victim, usually a clump of their hair, and places it in the journal. The next day, Millicent finds Dr. Welsh talking with Rebecca about Johnny's progress. The doctor points out that the new nanny is crucial to his recovery, unaware that the nanny in question is Millicent, whom he was led to believe is named Marybeth. However, despite her son's progress, Rebecca doesn't want anything to do with the nanny. Armed with her knowledge about Rebecca's hatred towards her, Millicent laces Johnny's new medication. Later, she prepares an apple jam with honey for Johnny's sandwich. Jacob joins them in the kitchen and suggestively feeds the nanny some jam from his finger. All of a sudden, Jacob is stabbed in the leg by an angry Johnny. In Johnny's bedroom, Millicent tries to coax the reluctant child hiding under his blanket. With malicious intentions, Millicent gives Johnny her knife, asks him to use it on Rebecca if he wants to, and hugs him as he falls asleep. Afterward, Millicent is in the backyard when Jacob approaches to make love. They're unaware that Johnny is watching them from his bedroom window, screaming loudly at what he's witnessing. Hours later, Rebecca and Johnny spend time drawing and coloring together. The mother notices her son's screwed sketches of Millicent and her husband's affair. She snatches the illustration and notices the other artwork on the wall of the nanny, replacing her in all of them. Rebecca asks her son if he likes Millicent more than his mother. However, all she gets in response is a blank stare from her son. The following day, Millicent starts throwing all the bottles of medication in the trash. As she talks to the mirror about her plan to start a family for Johnny, she recounts all the foster fathers who tormented her and how their deaths were all ruled as their own doing. She slowly turns around to find Dr. Welsh lifeless on the floor, foaming at the mouth. Millicent reflects on how she thought he was different, but he turned out to be the same as the others. She returns to Johnny's house, but Rebecca denies her entry. Refusing to leave, Millicent attacks Rebecca through the door. Unable to get inside, she rushes to Jacob's work shed and professes her love for him, but he doesn't feel the same way. Meanwhile, Rebecca reassures her son that she'll always be by his side. As Rebecca approaches, Johnny holds a knife behind his back. Suddenly, he stabs Rebecca's hand, and she screams in pain. After pulling the knife out, Rebecca grabs Johnny's neck, asking if Millicent gave him the knife. Realizing what she's doing, she lets go and apologizes. She then takes Johnny to his room before running after Millicent, who is in the work shed with Jacob. Rebecca stabs Millicent, who tries to flee towards the house. Seeing Johnny approaching, Millicent begs for help, but Johnny stabs her repeatedly until she dies. His stunned parents can only watch the carnage. Later, Jacob digs a grave, and they bury Millicent's dismembered body, discussing the possibility of buying an adjoining lot if their son continues to murder his babysitters. Rebecca finally accepts her son's condition and throws out all his medication. She joins Johnny and asks him who his mommy is. Her child answers with a painful kiss on the lips and smiles at her, making the woman morbidly happy. Underneath the ground in the family's backyard are the corpses of Johnny's many slain babysitters, all in varying stages of decomposition. And those are also the final details of the movie. See you in the next video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.